This video is about the times two famous Allied pilots, Don Gentile and John Godfrey, flew together. They flew for the RAF and the U.S. Army Air Forces out of Dieppe, England. Aside from their individual accomplishments, Gentile and Godfrey are famous for the occasions when they teamed up. Between them, they were credited with, depending on the source, 56 aircraft destroyed, 36 in the air and 20 on the ground. These 4th Fighter Group P-47s are on the way back from a bomber escort mission to Essen, Germany. This is John Godfrey's first combat mission. Godfrey served with the RAF before being assigned to the 336th Fighter Squadron of the 4th Fighter Group. Gentile is the element leader. Within the next year, Godfrey and Gentile would become renowned throughout the world as a fighter pilot duo. Gentile had become a flight leader this same September month. He normally led B Flight for the 336th Fighter Squadron, and Jim Goodson, the squadron CO, led A Flight. Both Gentile and Godfrey got an early start in the war as Americans who joined the Royal Canadian Air Force. They both joined separately 4 and 3 months respectively before the U.S. entered the war. Gentile had already been flying combat missions for 15 months since June of 1942. Gentile flew with other RAF squadrons before joining 133 Squadron, one of the 3 RAF Eagle squadrons, where he flew his first combat missions. The American Eagle Squadron's pilots flew Spitfire Mark Vs until being absorbed into the U.S. Army Air Forces in September 1942, forming the core of the 4th Fighter Group. They kept their Spitfires with the original RAF squadron codes, but the RAF roundels were overpainted with American stars. In April 1943, they traded the more streamlined Spitfires for bigger P-47Cs, which many of the pilots were not happy about. The Spitfires were perceived to have better maneuverability and climb rate, although the P-47s have better range, good firepower with longer duration, and excellent dive capability. On the way back to Dieppe, Gentile was low on fuel, so he left the group to look for a closer airfield. Godfrey followed. Flying through heavy cloud, Gentile descended from 26,000 feet in an unorthodox, tight spiral. They broke through the cloud layer only 1,500 feet above the ground, saw the coast, and found an airbase, Bradwell, in Essex, south of the Thames. After they landed, Gentile went over to Godfrey and praised him for staying so close on his wing. Gentile's gyro compass wasn't working, so he had no idea what direction he was flying in, not to mention where the ground was. He was grateful things didn't end badly. Later that evening, in a bar, Gentile commented about how impressed he was by Godfrey. His eyesight, which may have been the best in the U.S. Army Air Forces, and his ability to fly close formation. And so, Johnny Godfrey completed his first combat mission, and it just happened to be as Don Gentile's wingman. Don Blakesley, a veteran flight leader, led 4 sorties to Dieppe on the 19th of August, 1942, to support the British and Canadian landings. He claimed enemy aircraft destroyed with each sortie. Blakesley was another American who joined the Royal Canadian Air Force. He joined a year before Godfrey and Gentile. He transferred to 133 Eagle Squadron 2 months before Dieppe as a flight leader. After Dieppe, he would go on to temporarily lead the squadron. Landing craft are withdrawing from the beachheads in front of the town. Heinkel 111s, DO 217s, JU 88s, and FW 190 fighter bombers bombed and strafed the landing craft as they withdrew from the beaches. Half of the landing craft were destroyed. Both Godfrey and Gentile had tendencies to break away from a flight and attack enemy aircraft solo early in their careers. There was a lot of competition to try to get an aircraft before somebody else could beat you to it. Gentile was the first to see the need to fly with a wingman, and he convinced Godfrey. From Gentile's book, I saw a Junkers 88 going down to lay his eggs on what was temporarily our beach. He was diving and I dove with him and under him so that he couldn't see me and I could get up to speed. Then I pulled up behind him and let him have it. I didn't take any evasive action. I felt so confident. I was packed swollen with blissful ignorance, and I just threw a barn door full of bullets at him. He jettisoned his bombs in the water trying to get away, and I banged him again, and he burned on the beach. Right after that, while I was still down on the deck, crazy with confidence and a sense of power, I saw two yellow-nosed Focke-Wulfs under me, some Abbeville kids looking for a fight to get into. I got onto their tails and shot down one, but the other got away from me. From Don Gentile's book, One Man Air Force. John and I had been separated from the others in my flight, and suddenly as we turned around to look for some of our boys, I spotted these two lone FW-190s cruising along. I told Godfrey, let's go jump these boys before they get away. We turned and dived on them, and as we got closer, I said to John, I'll take the one on the left, and you take the guy on the right. And that's how we clobbered them. After we parked our jugs, I asked John what he thought about his second kill, and he said, "Perfect teamwork. I liked it." Don knew then that Johnny had seen the light about teamwork. He thought Johnny was going to be an excellent wingman, eager, alert, and a very smooth pilot. The 4th Fighter Group converted from P-47s to Mustangs in February 1944, flying their first missions in early March. Many P-51s turned back early due to teething problems. By March, both Gentile and Godfrey were leading separate flights for the 336th Fighter Squadron, meaning they didn't fly together. They could only pair up when other flight members turned back or if they became separated from their starting wingmen during the fighting. Godfrey wrote that the P-47s he flew only had belly tanks, implying no wing tanks. The Mustangs came with wing pylons. This mission is to the VKF ball bearing works in Erkner. Erkner is 16 miles southeast of Berlin, so it was a long mission. Participating in that mission were 411 B-17s, 209 B-24s, and 876 escort fighters, although it seemed like the participation by the 4th Fighter Group was minimal due to a lot of fighters turning back. As they approached the bomber stream, Gentile and Godfrey saw a number of enemy fighters attacking the lead formation of B-17s. From the book Two-Man Air Force, Don Gentile recalled, "We were flying alone, went down to break up a head-on attack on the lead box of forts. 50 109s were flying in 2s and 4s. Many 109s were in the area. We were able to pick and choose the best bounces. I picked 2, and we did 6 or 7 turns with them. From the same book, Godfrey's version of the story, Don dived on a 109, quickly got behind, and blew him apart knowing he was protected. Now a 109 slipped into Godfrey's ring sight. Don said they were clear, and for Godfrey to nail him, which he did. The 109 flipped on its back, trailing smoke through its final plunge. Gentile continues, "We attacked another 109 head-on. The gyrations this son was making forced me to violent action, but Johnny rode right along like a blocking back who could run with the best. Using flaps, I got behind him, closed to 100 yards, got strikes, and the pilot bailed out. The two pilots formed abreast and climbed for the fighter formation at 28,000 feet, slightly above the bomber stream. They noticed two 109s turning in to attack the B-17s and dived to shoot them. Don took the one on the left, and that burst into flames after a few seconds of attention. Don and Johnny had begun firing simultaneously. The narration from Gentile goes, "Noticed two 109s flying abreast and close together. Told Godfrey to take the right one. I opened fire at 250 yards and closed in until I almost rammed him. The plane went down spinning and smoking badly. Godfrey exploded his 109. Gentile described it as, "Johnny and I formed up tight and went against a team of two Messerschmitts. I'll take the port one and you take the starboard one," I told Johnny. And we came in line abreast and in a 2-second burst finished off both of them. They were dead before they knew we were there. Godfrey became an ace that day. Now they were flying at the same altitude as the bombers. The enemy fighters had gone, and flak bursts filled the sky in that area. From Gentile's book he recalls, "Then a Messerschmitt bounced Johnny. Johnny turned into him and I swung around to run interference for him. The Hun made a tight swing to get on Johnny's tail. Saw me and rolled right under me before I could get a shot in. I rolled with him and fastened to his tail. But by that time we were very close to flak coming up from the city. The Hun wasn't so worried about the flak. I was his immediate and more desperate woe. Then I got strikes on him. Glycol started coming out of him, and I had to pass him. But Johnny had fallen into formation right on my wing, and he took up the shooting where I had left off. He put more bullets into the Hun while I was swinging up and around to run interference for him. Godfrey's version of the events went like this. Don tried to get on the 109's tail, who broke off and headed for the ground. When the 109 pulled out, I fired rounds at him. There were strikes on fuselage and wing as they skimmed the treetops. My ammo ran out. I radioed Don to finish the 109. Gentile's story continues. Then Godfrey said his ammunition had run out, and I said, "Okay, I'll finish him." And I followed him down into the streets, clobbering him until he pulled up and bailed out. In some of the story versions, the 109 had a belly tank. That seems hard to believe that the 109 would attack with a belly tank still attached. On the return trip, they encountered a lone B-17, one engine shut down, and escorted it back to England. Gentile summed things up for that day as, "To show how a team works, even when a big brawl has boiled the team down to two men flying wing on each other, Johnny and I spent 20 minutes over Berlin on March 8th and came out of there with 6 planes destroyed to our credit." They shared credit for that last 109. Teamwork is the answer to any man's score. Gentile and Godfrey agreed to fly together on future missions. The checkerboards were added to both sides of their fuselages with the intent of making it easier to keep track of each other in a dogfight. In mid-March, the 4th Fighter Group painted the noses of their Mustangs red. There's speculation that Gentile flew through a thunderstorm and wore some of the red paint off the tip of his spinner. Then it was cleaned up by removing more red paint. On the 23rd of March, 1944, Gentile and Godfrey teamed up again and both claimed 109s in a dogfight near Munster. Gentile claimed two 109s as the element leader, and then switched positions with Godfrey, who claimed one more. On a mission to Brunswick on the 29th of March, 1944, although they didn't fly in the same flight, Godfrey may have saved Gentile's life by warning him of two 190s coming in on his tail. News reporters were taking interest in Gentile as he got close to tying Rickenbacker's World War I record. No one was sure if both air and ground victories should count towards that goal. The U.S. Army Air Forces wanted to promote flight elements making use of wingmen. Gentile and Godfrey became poster boys for that concept. Gentile agreed to take time off for a 4-month tour in the U.S. if he would be allowed to return to combat. Blakesley, the 4th Fighter Group's CO since January 1, 1944, knew this. Gentile already had 500 hours and one extension. Before he took off that April 13th day, the reporters, who would be waiting for his return, asked if he would fly low so they could take photos. Blakesley had a standing decree that anyone damaging an aircraft buzzing would be sent home. Gentile had a long history of buzzing things on the ground, starting during his biplane days. He once buzzed an English Greyhound racetrack as a means of getting out of being assigned to flight instructor duty. Unfortunately, his luck finally ran out. The crash was due to pilot error. At the time, Gentile claimed 30 aircraft destroyed, 23 air and 7 on the ground. This was later reduced to 19.83 in the air and 6 on the ground. Bob Johnson is generally credited with being the first to beat Rickenbacker's record in the ETO. Godfrey's original VFP P-51 took a flak hit on the 21st of March, 1944, which may have contributed to its retirement. Godfrey received a new natural metal finish, P-51B, in mid-April. Godfrey actually borrowed Shangri-La for 2 missions on April 9th and 11th, just before Gentile crashed it on the 13th. Godfrey was worn out and was grounded for a few days. He didn't fly the new Mustang for a first mission until the 22nd of April, and got 3 109s with it, but was almost shot down. Godfrey had a chance to fly it again 2 days later, but on April 27th, his new Mustang was crashed by his roommate. Godfrey flew 3 more missions, continuing to add to his score. In early May, he was given a 30-day leave for a warbond tour of bases, where he again teamed up with Gentile and other aces. After a few weeks, Godfrey got tired of the touring and applied for and was granted a second tour of duty at Debden. He resumed flying on the 31st of July and flew several more missions, adding to his score. However, the 24th of August was his last mission. While strafing an aerodrome for the 3rd time, breaking his own rule, he was hit by gunfire and bellied in to become a POW, with 18 air and 18 ground victories, the most, 36, in the ETO at that time. From Two-Man Air Force, years later, while reviewing gun camera footage, it was ironically found that Godfrey's wingman had fired rounds into his aircraft by not waiting for Godfrey to clear out of the way while strafing the base. That is ironic in a story about wingmen. When in Royal Canadian Air Force pre-flight training, Johnny learned his brother Reggie had been killed when his ship was sunk by a German U-boat. Thus, Reggie's reply. The 4th Fighter Group pilot rankings in order, if I haven't missed anyone, are Don Gentile, credited with 19.83 in the air and 6 on the ground, while flying with the U.S. Army Air Forces, plus 2 more claims flying with the RAF. Dwayne Beeson, who had a friendly rivalry with Gentile until the 5th of April 1944 when he was hit by ground fire and bailed out, was credited with 17.33 aerial victories. Godfrey was originally credited with 18 in the air, that was later revised to 16.33 and 14 on the ground. Don Blakesley was credited with 11.5 aerial victories, flying with the 4th Fighter Group, plus at least 2 more with the RAF. Jim Goodson was credited with 14. Jim was down by AA on the 14th of June, 1944. All of these guys got an early start with the Royal Canadian Air Force, and all but Godfrey were vets from the Eagle squadrons. That's it for the 2 Debden teammates.